have to, I got it. I don't want to leave the meeting. I like how it gives me that choice. It's being recorded. If you don't like it, you can leave. Okay, welcome everyone. I think we're live. It looks like it's going live any minute now. You're going to see our cute little faces. And oh, good. There we go. I have to mute it so we don't hear that secondary thing. All right, good. So welcome everyone. Akasha here. Thank you for joining me on the Infinite Show and for another infinite conversation. I so love this idea of having fascinating conversation with interesting people. So if you know anybody you think is really doing, receiving, understanding, sharing, teaching, opening some kind of door that's really a new way of seeing what's happening, or a refinement, because what we're realizing is just stop doing everything you've been doing the way you've been doing it, because it's part of the old world that we're from. So, all right, good. So we have here with me today, Louise Matson, and I'll just share quickly her bio. I like to put it up, so I do it well. And you've seen her before. She's been on my summits. I've been on her summits, and you want to be aligned with Louise. I think she's one of those people who's truly has a clear connection. So what we're seeing is a lot of people waking up, a lot of people's senses, their intuitive powers, their talents, their gifts, their clairs are waking up. It doesn't mean that everybody is a clear channel. So that's a whole other level of refinement. So welcome today. What we're going to do is talk with Louise. So let me share a little bit. Louise is a conscious intuitive channel, a conduit for energy healing, a best-selling co-author and way shower and spiritual mentor and guide. And she channels source energy, sharing messages through her Source Speaks blog. And that's loumatson.com. Okay. Channeled healing journeys and healing work. She does all kinds of really awesome work with clients. And she's the host of the wonderful Mundane to Magical online series. You totally have to check it out. I've been on there a few times. Wonderful speakers, fascinating conversations, very revealing, very transformational, not a lot of wasted time going on. And she's assisting people all over the world to come together in a high vibrational community, yay, supporting each other's ascension process. So we know we're in it, and it is time to become that individual spirit and be one. And this is how we do it, right? So her sole purpose is to guide and assist people to standing in their sovereignty, which is something I think everybody is waking up to. I don't want to be attached to everybody else's opinions and to my past fears and everything else, and understand who you truly are as a sovereign creator being, realigning to your life purpose and true potential. So you can find her at loumatson.com and at mundane to magicalliving.com. So yay, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for inviting me. It's lovely connecting with you again.
Yes. So we're talking about, so we kind of know like, yeah, there you are. This is who you are. You have all this experience. Really, to me, the most powerful thing is who you become, right? In the process of doing your thing. So we get to live our purpose while doing our spiritual work on ourselves and then amplifying it by working with others and teaching it and getting to connect into these see patterns. I love that I work with students, I work with clients, and I work with myself, and I can see more than just what's happening with me, right? We start to see the flow, the patterns, the unfolding. So we were talking about, as you're doing your spiritual work, as you're doing your soul work, as we know everyone is waking up, even the muggles know we're waking up, you go through these healing processes to find the different parts of you, to, discover past lives or other parts of your soul that are holding wounds or fears or beliefs or heavy energies that are preventing you from speaking up and doing all the things you're waking up to wanting to do. And the difference between when over the years that we've been doing this work. So share a little bit about what you're seeing unfold right now, other than the speed, which we really all kind of get.
Yeah, absolutely. That is one thing that has really ramped up. I mean, decades ago, we would have been peeling one layer of the onion very, very slowly going away, processing, integrating, coming back, a few months later and doing another bit. No, it's not like that anymore at all. And it's actually what I'm seeing is the in one session with a client, I am doing far more than I've ever done. It's like astronomically huge amount of energy work, which obviously is then going to be processed. But I always trust that whatever people are receiving is absolutely perfect for them and they're ready for, because the intention is always the utmost ease and grace in terms of integration. So it's not just the speed, but what I'm also seeing is, if you like, when I've been looking into people's fields and their healing team, because I'm a conduit for energy healing, I do not claim to heal anybody myself, only myself. I only work on myself and I'm a channel for everyone else. But rather than kind of working through the blocks within the field that I'm seeing and the distorted overlay programs and all of the different layers and levels that this energy is kind of been placed, they're showing me like a computer. A computer doesn't store information in a linear line. It stores a bit over here and then it stores a bit over there. That's why we have to defrag computers. It kind of brings it all clumped back together. In your energy field, it's pretty much the same. So it'll store a bit in your emotional body, it'll store some in your physical body and various other places like that, but on a far greater multidimensional scale. When I'm clearing or when I'm seeing the clearing, it's usually been in a kind of horizontal line. I've usually seen the linear tracking back through the individual's past lives, the possibly direct ancestral links. Mm-hmm. What I'm actually seeing now is beyond that, like way beyond that. The contracts and the agreements and the commands and decrees that people have made, we've all made them. I mean, we make, even up until about 20 years ago, I was making them. I'm never doing that again.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah. So take a second, sorry to interrupt your flow, but just take a second and explain to people, because like I know I get into the language and I feel like, well, I know what I mean when I say an attachment, an energetic attachment or an energetic agreement. It could be a vow, a contract, could look like a karmic knot, shows up in all the different parts of your body, mental, emotional, spiritual, right? Yeah. And the chakras are here or there, but they form from different reasons. So give a little background on that so everybody's caught up.
So it doesn't matter whether it's a situation that's occurring in this lifetime or any other lifetime that you've experienced. And remember, all time is now. So, past, present, future, it's all the same. You've experienced something. And like I say, you say something like, I'm never doing that again. Or, you've been living your truth. You've been standing in your sovereignty. You've been using your gifts and that situation ended badly, or, something terrible happened. I mean, previous past lives for a lot of people, especially light workers, that's exactly what happened. And at the point where your emotional intensity is really high, basically, you either make an agreement, you basically make a contract with somebody else or a group of others, or with yourself, that XYZ, this isn't going to happen again. I'm not doing that again, or whatever. And that then not only becomes a block or a piece of energy in your field that therefore shouldn't be there in your new incarnation, but it also leaves an open portal to that point of origination. Yeah. So basically, your field has got all of these little tiny openings within the quantum field, linking you directly back to that experience, that event. And that's why it's so intense, because you've got that link and then you have another lifetime and you experience the same thing because you've coded into your field, I'm not doing that again, that's dangerous, that ended really badly. So then that generates another experience, and that's where we see the patterns building. Same story, different players. And we have a few of those in multiple lifetimes, and then it becomes a really strong influence. And then our automatic decision making is based on this open portal that's linking you to that point of origination and all the other subsequent life points where you've experienced a similar pattern. And it then, even when you're consciously saying, I want to do something different, it's really hard to break that cycle because you're open, you're directly linked to this experience, and it's very real because it's happening in the same now moment. So you've still got that level of emotional intensity, but it's not in this lifetime, it's way back there. So that then creates all of these distorted overlays. So it may be to do with being a service soul, it may be to standing in your power, speaking your truth, allowing yourself to be loved or give love, being abundant, letting abundance in, all of these different energies that we can have these attachments to. And that's what I mean by attachments, an energetic connection. And they can be anywhere within your field, and they can be really, really strong. Or if it's something that's just playing out in this lifetime, it may not be quite as strong, but they all need to be cleared to clear out all of the white noise within your field, for you to be able to fully stand in your truth and stand in your sovereignty and be that clear channel that we all are. I'm nothing special to be a clear channel. I've just been committed to clearing out my clutter, to kind of clear
exactly
that doesn't serve, basically.
Yeah. When we were talking before, you said something like, when you do your work every day. And that's how I feel. Like I was never somebody who wanted to do a daily routine. I mean, I brushed my teeth, I took my shower. But when I was younger, I was like, let's just do it all at once, really intense, and make it happen. And even if it was months and months of hard work, it didn't matter. I wanted to and then make it happen and be done with it. So it's taken me a long time in my life to realize this daily thing. But what changed it was the spiritual work, was the meditation, was the things I started to learn, the tools that was like, wow, that worked, right? That gave me some peace. I don't feel my grief so much now. I'm not as burdened by my sense of I'm not good enough or fear of what will be and all those things that we've lived with. And wow, I tell you what, I used to try to make a quantum leap happen. I used to try to force that epic moment or go back to that powerful, expanded out of body experience and past life thing I had, and wanting the epic experience over and over all the time, and then I realized that if I just get up every day and I activate my light body and I cleanse and clear and I do my stuff, I work with the space and everything all the time, all day long. It's fun. It's not work once you know what you're doing and stuff. It makes the difference, because then when that door opens, when that moment happens, then you're like, ooh, you're ready to the point that you could be ready. You can't be in regret. Oh, I should have done more. You're like, I did my thing every day. Sometimes you feel like nothing's happening. When's the bamboo going to come up from the thing, right? Oh my gosh, so much lately too. So yeah, that idea that you do it every day, you detach from it, because then these things open up. So everybody has wounds, everybody has soul wounds, attachments, agreements, contracts, and those decisions that you make in the vow moment, in that intense pain moment. That's like, I am never using my voice to rally the villagers, to tell people what to do, to lead them, because they all died because I spoke up, right? Whatever that was. And then now you're trying to speak up. But we're meant to now complete these, right? It's sort of like having connection to toxic pipelines. And we, clear those so that the clear communication to potentially a future potential self or a part of us that had powers we're ready to embody now could come through. Right?
Yeah. And also when you clear those, and again, the clearing of them looks in many different ways. One of the things that when we were speaking before we went live was, Spirit has always worked with me in that we don't need to attach to the story. In fact, we don't, from Spirit's perspective, I don't want them to attach to the story, because it's really easy then to open that portal back up. Because again, the ego's journey in this is one that is a joining journey. So we want the ego to come with us. From want of a better word, we're calling it the ego, but it's those aspects of us that are really attached to this personality identification in this incarnation, and not so much the eternal aspect that's lived many, many lives. So we want it to join us on the road. We want it to come with us, but what it wants to do is stay where it is, because that's what it knows. Because the personality identification construct only knows what it knows. It knows what it's been taught. It knows what it's learned. And when you start clearing all of this, it freaks that aspect out because it's got nothing to hook into anymore. And it's like, okay, I just don't know who I am anymore. It's when you change job or you retire, suddenly it's like, oh, I don't know who I am anymore because I was a boss, I was this, I was that, and now that role is gone. And it's like, whoa, okay, rug's been pulled out. And that's exactly what it feels like when we're clearing these attachments, because however much you may not want to be influenced and to have your choices to be interfered with or influenced by an external, as it were, but it's not because it's derived from your own experience. You may not want that from a wholly conscious perspective, and yet there's an aspect of you that feels quite comfortable with that because that's all it knows. So it has this rug pull out moment each time you do some clearing, each time you even contemplate engaging in this work. So things like those tools, and again, I was never one for doing the same thing every day. So that's one thing that I will say. You don't have to get up at 4 a.m. every single
God, no.
If your spiritual practice is starting to feel like a chore, flip it up, do something else, but it's still a spiritual practice. Spiritual practice and practicing something every day doesn't mean it gets to look the same every day.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so glad you said that. No, I walk around, I'll go down to the beach. I live at the beach, and if I'm swimming, I'll do my energy work and my clearing and activation in the water. Or walk around and talk to the plants, and before and in between every client. And what feels fun. It's like, I like how you said, if it becomes this routine that you feel like you're a slave to, then that's an old pattern. I have to do it. Because I used to think early on, when my life fell apart, and then I started to build a spiritual structure to my life, then I thought I had to apply those same principles of work really hard and do it right and do it the best. If I do my meditation the best, nothing bad will ever happen again. And then it's like, wow, you have to, there's layers to this. You take that practice on, but you don't sit around feeling guilty because you didn't do it yesterday because you were sick or you had to take the kids to school or whatever it was, right? Different. It's a different way of giving yourself a daily time to you.
Absolutely. I mean, one of the things that everything started ramping up. I can't remember how many years ago now, because time is flying super, super fast. But I got a very clear message, and it was hilarious because in the UK we used to have an education secretary when I was a teacher, and I can't remember his name now, but he was always known as the grey man because he always wore a grey suit and he was really boring. But his slogan was back to basics. And that's what came through. And I was just like, what are you talking about, back to basics? Because I had this attachment to that guy and what he was saying. But it was basically, make sure your field is clear. In whatever way works for you, cleanse your field. And that means basically clear out your field of all of the stuff that isn't yours. Like the problem with your neighbor, what somebody else thinks of something. This thing that you've taken on board that's actually another person's problem, whatever it is, whatever you've picked up from the television or the radio or whatever, just clear your field. Do that as a daily practice, and it can look 1,000,001 different ways. Know where you start and stop. Where are my boundaries? Yes, we're moving towards unification. Yes, we're moving towards higher dimensions where this duality, polarity doesn't exist. But we're not there yet. We do exist in this dimension, and our lowest aspect exists in this polarized and dualized world. So know where you start and stop, because if you're walking around like an open sponge going, oh, I want to live in the 5D, great, but you're picking up everything. You've got no filter on. So know where you start and stop. Ensure your boundaries. And first and foremost, your boundary is no. Allow yourself to say no to that which doesn't feel in alignment or isn't fun. And that includes spiritual practice. If sitting cross-legged doesn't do it for you,
Oh
Don't
no.
say cross-legged.
No. The only time I've ever done that was when I was in an ayahuasca journey. And I don't know how I did it because physically I can't. I have a bad knee type of thing. And I was just like, I realized I'm sitting, because I was like embodying Paramahansa Yogananda, and we were like, it was a thing. But I was like, dude, how did I do that? No, I be comfortable. Be comfortable. Yeah, right wherever you
Absolutely.
are. So I love that. Like, know where you and the other day, one of my clients, we were doing a private session, I think, and was scanning her field as she's talking, and we're tuning into what's optimal in the moment. And she said, I said, what are you holding on to? There's just something. And she's, like talking about all this stuff. And she finally was like, oh, well, made all these excuses for I don't know, business program that she had expressed interest in that we're now hounding her to buy. There's a lot of that going on, especially now. There's a huge amount of spam and stuff like that. So it's common. However, she was engaged in that conversation, was getting pulled in, and then she was feeling the guilt, and it was triggering all of her money stuff, right? And all this and that. And it was a huge amount of money, like for anybody. Okay. And, then the whole idea of, well, if you don't do this, then you're not really committed to yourself. And this is the secret. If you pay me a lot of money and all this, I know this world very well. And so, but you could see it in her fields. She was just like, like it was like sort of like this heavy blanket that was trying to weigh her down. And she was like, but they weren't pushing me, but I just don't know. And it's not 100% yes. So I'm waiting, and I'm like wanting to scream. So it's no. And then the image that I got instantly was somebody with their hands on a white table, but they removed them like it was a hot stove. It was like this, and I said, well, all I know is hands off. Just take your hands off of it for right now. Oh, thank you. Thank goodness. So yeah, if it's not 100% yes, listen to yourself until you find out why. Until you let go of that energy and you're free to make a decision. Never make a decision when you're in pressure like that.
I mean, that is a classic. That is a beautiful example of how our growth works. We're given these opportunities for spiritual growth literally every moment of our lives. And it's, do we actually see them for what they are? Or do we get tied into what they're trying to sell us, or what they're, what is this, what is that? If you're being triggered by something, take a step back, breathe, and go, that's interesting. Okay, what is it about this situation that's triggering me? Now, it may be that there's something within this situation that is a hidden aspect of your field. And I'll give an example because it doesn't always look the same way. And that's where people get even more triggered because they go, I'm not like that person. It's like, no, you're not exactly like that person, but there's an energy that is similar. It's the frequency. So I was really triggered by my parents. My parents were two of the most manipulative and controlling people on the planet. I loved them very dearly.
Congratulations.
But they were.
You're what I call a kick-ass spirit. You're like, yeah, let's do this. Bring it on.
But one of the parts of my journey was I had to own the fact that I was so triggered because I hold the frequencies of manipulation and control within me. Now, no, it doesn't show itself in the same way. I don't try to manipulate and control everybody around me to my own end. I manipulate and control myself. If you are not speaking your truth, if you are trying to hold in or suppress anything, you're controlling yourself. You're controlling that which you're allowing yourself to radiate out. So again, not seeing that the thing that is triggering you as a direct mirror, but saying, okay, stop. Okay, take a breath. This is really interesting. What is it about this situation, this person, whatever, that is triggering me? Because the other thing that it can and most probably is related to is that portal that we spoke about at the beginning, where we've made a contract, we've made an agreement, we've made a promise with ourselves, we've said a vow, a decree. There may be something ancestral that is tying us into this way of reacting, responding. So it may just be that we get to clear that stuff out and we don't have to go into the storyline of what it was at that point of origination. We just get to neutralize it and we get to redivinitize that situation. Now, sometimes that involves freezing time, reversing back, and shifting the whole timeline for everyone involved.
Yeah.
And sometimes it means going through that experience, but having the higher wisdom, the higher guidance flooding in, so that you're looking at it from that higher perspective. You're not completely tunnel vision, seeing it in the pain and the emotional stuff and all of the mental attitudes that you were in the point of origination experiencing it in. You're able to zoom out and go, okay, this is really crap, but I kind of see from the bigger picture perspective why this gets to happen.
Yeah.
And, you know, I may have to go through what I consider to be hell, but that's actually going to make that person grow. That person's going to trigger some healing or some, you know, it may not be your story. It may be that you're a player in someone else's.
Yeah.
But we can only do that if we get that zoomed out lens. And so the kind of the neutralizing and redivinitizing of past life stuff, it is about the unraveling of these contracts, because actually right here, right now, we're really being called to pull our divine essence in.
Yes.
It doesn't want to be anywhere else. We need to really, really pull our field back in and release ourselves from all of these different points in time and space that we're connected into that are not serving us in any way. And so that we can restore ourselves to full power, so that we can actually be here for this time and these events that we're living through, and that, you know, we're here to fulfill whatever our mission and our purpose is in this lifetime, and not be, as it were, focusing on the past or projecting into a future, but we haven't got the resources within us to do a good job of any of it. So that's what this work, I feel, at this time is. And one thing that I've noticed is, like I say, it's not just from a horizontal, a linear back through my incarnations.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's going vertically. It's going to your soul monadic group. And what I mean by that is we're all an individuated aspect of the all that is. But that all that is kind of steps its vibration down into a group consciousness, and then those individual aspects step down into a lower and a lower and lower until we get to this individuated divine spark.
Yeah. Descended gods.
Yeah, so like the monadic structure is basically one of those group consciousness levels. The whole group made a contract, the whole group made a vow or a command or whatever. And so now I see that we're clearing up. We're clearing upwards, and all of these contracts are, if you like, soul level.
Yeah.
And that's not then just doing the healing for you. I mean, the linear stuff isn't either, but on a wider scale, it's doing it for the whole monadic group. So when you break those contracts and you take your energy out of it, it's like taking a leg off a table. It becomes unstable. And so it starts to disintegrate naturally.
Yes.
And triggers that healing, as it were, response in the rest of the monadic structure.
Yeah.
But that's another really major thing that I've been seeing.
Well, and the thing is that everybody, especially light workers, healers, people who are on a conscious path and, you know, seeking out these different things, wanting to understand and so on, you know, we all have these big hearts and we want to help everyone and heal everyone. And we're, you know, thank goodness, coming out of the I have to fix everybody and I have to fix myself phase, right? And yet the deeper realization that when you do your work, you are doing the work that helps everyone else, you know, became a cliche, especially when it's like, well, you know, if you're in a relationship that isn't beneficial to everybody, you're not selfish by leaving. You're freeing everyone. Doesn't that other person deserve to be with someone who wants to be with them, right? Don't the children deserve to be in an environment that's full of love, not conflict, and so on, right? So we've taken it from that very dense concept out and out. And to me, it's spherical consciousness is what I was taught in one of my mystery schools, is like this idea of 360-degree spherical consciousness. Is we understand we move in a spiral. We understand that, yes, there's the perception of linear time, but we can move back and forward, that there's those future potential selves that we could talk to get communication from, just as well as these old ones. But these ones are loud, right? These ones you're talking about, like, we're connected to, right? They're loud, loud, loud. They're in the way, and they're talking. And so the power of working at these multiple levels is, for me, what I see is, I don't know, I'm guessing maybe 5 years now or more, that the earth itself, the planet, right, all the species, all the living forces on it are pooping this out, are puking this energy out. It's like coming out of everything, right? Like, how many centuries of torture, how many centuries of power over each other and greed and whatever, how many centuries of all these ways of being and thinking, all the things we've all done. We would be here on a therapist couch for 2,000 years if we wanted to talk it all through the story, right? So then, who cares about the story or the underlying energy, because you're already feeling it. So it's served on your plate and then it's vibrating out. What I'm seeing is that when you resolve something in your field, you free it, you transform it, you pan for the gold, you bring that wisdom from it and let go of the goopy energy, then all these other parts of you free up. And it's like having more people on the bus moving forward, looking the same direction within you. And now you're saying that this is also happening on group levels, collective conscious levels. And there's layers, like we have a layered light body. The earth has layers too. And there's a lot of stuff in the Akasha. There's a lot of stuff in the collective conscious layers. And so what do you see when people are releasing these faster, bigger boxes of stuff instead of going through the box? Like you said, so what's everything in the box, just, taking it out. And then that freedom, what follows? What's the sense or the feeling that people can do to anchor? Because what I think happens is the mental field stays in a space of this is who we are. So it keeps repeating it or going back and getting it or echoing that feeling, that reaction, as the neural pathways and so on are redirecting.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple more things that are becoming really apparent. We're really being called to embody. It's all about embodiment. That's what everybody's soul purpose is. If you're wondering what's my soul purpose, it's embodiment. Embody your truth. And that means it's beautiful going up and out, and we've all done it, and it's a starting point. Because let's be fair, when we all start this journey, we're going from a really dense place. And, sometimes the only way we can connect into our highest aspects is through meditation, going up and out into those areas of our beautiful multidimensional spectrum of vibration, sound, and light that we are. But what I'm seeing a lot now is that as the work is being done energetically, they're also working to have that conversation with body consciousness. To actually recode at the DNA level, to recode at the cellular memory level, but to have that conversation with the body consciousness. Because quite often, if you think about it, when you buy a computer, and the reason that they always bring me things like computer stuff is because I trained in engineering, so they know that that's a frame of reference I understand.
It's nice now, though, because I used to teach prior to computers and prior to the internet and prior to fast speed internet. And it's such an easy thing for people to grasp now. Absolutely. Right? Like, we used to get a TV signal, but people somehow thought it came through the cable and, all of that. It was very mechanical. So it's a great analogy.
But when you buy a computer, you don't get an empty computer. You never get an empty computer. It always comes with something. And it usually comes with something antivirus system on it. And I'm not going to say the name, but it's a terrible thing to try and get off if you don't want it. So basically, your body consciousness has come pre-programmed. And that's what I mean. All of these portals, at the point of incarnation, your body consciousness has already been programmed with all of this baggage. So quite often what I'm seeing is it's like an upgrade of the body consciousness, because as we're clearing all of this out energetically, we have to get the body consciousness on board. We have to get the body consciousness not in a defensive mode, not in that feels safe, I want to go back to that, I'm going to find the way to go back, but in a, oh, okay, we haven't got any evidence to kind of back up this new idea that you're bringing in, but I'm willing to take whatever small steps to build that evidence and actually take some action steps, because that's what embodying it is. It's feeling your inspiration and taking a physical action, whether it be verbally speaking your truth, writing something down, or actually saying yes to a course, no to this person, whatever it is. It's actually bringing it into the physical realm in some way, shape or form. The other aspect that they are doing now is the the planetary consciousness, which we all are as well. We have our incarnated spectrum of light, and that's what we consider the physical body and the auric field to be. But we extend beyond that. We're infinitum. We're just quantum energy. We are the all that is. So we see sources above, because we're human. We like to have visual things, and we like to work linearly. Even though things aren't linear. So we see sources above, but actually within the planetary consciousness that is also us, there is a source vibration within that. So as above, so below. The planetary consciousness has been held artificially low. That's now been lifted off. The artificial locks and blocks and everything, it's all gone. It's been lifted off. But what we're doing now is enabling the natural ascension process of the planetary consciousness to be fulfilled, but also clearing this detritus, this layer of absolute crud that we have been energizing ourselves from, feeding from, because we've been grounding into it, and basically feeding into throughout the millennia that we've been experiencing this artificial lock. So now, as we've said, if you do the work yourself, you're assisting everybody else, because when you become a clear and perfect channel, even for a millisecond in your day, you don't have to hold it in place 24/7. It's like, do it as much as you can be it. But if you're a clear and perfect channel, you are bringing that light up and down into this incarnated aspect of your field, and you're blasting out this thick layer of sludge. And so the composting is being allowed to take place, but what we're doing is we're shooting beams of light through, breaking up the thick, like if you've ever done gardening and you hit a patch of clay, it's thick, it's hard to break up, but this light is just shooting through and breaking it up and making it easier to compost. But we also get to anchor into the highest vibrational planetary consciousness that is existing at this time, and it is, we can see that, we can see it in the disruption of all the rigid structures that have existed up until now quite happily, and all the chaos that's ensuing. But we can also see it on things like the Schumann resonance, when
that's changed,
spikes, massively changed in frequency.
Mm-hmm.
So we anchor into that from a perspective of a vertical line, lower aspect, but it's actually the higher vibrational aspect of the planetary consciousness. So that's where we're anchoring our manifestation into. That's where we're taking action in alignment and embodying from. So we're not playing in that thick sludgy soup that's being composted. We're going through our clear channel into the higher vibrational Earth's energy, so that we can commit and say, okay, I'm choosing to do something differently, and have that anchored into something of a much higher vibration.
Yeah, and that's great, because the idea of grounding is outdated in the way that we thought of it.
Yeah,
because it was we were so thick and heavy, and the heavy energies anyway, and one of the few things we could sense was the earth like, oh, okay, I'm part of that body and type of thing. But what's been coming through in my classes for a few years is you ground into your own root, not into a place or a planet or something exterior to you. And so when you were talking, it was like that sludge of what we're releasing, living inside of, believing, still having that attachment to it instead of it being a history book, right? It's like compost that's feeding, and then reaching through that, the roots can not as necessarily as being stuck rooted, but root to receive nourishment from the higher states of Gaia, not the old states of Gaia, and the higher states of the crystals and the vibrations. They've been waking up for well over a decade now, since 2012, all those pre-programmed ones that were used in Atlantis and Lemuria and whatever else, they were like, went to sleep and now waking up. So yeah, there is. And the embodiment, you said something earlier that I'm so excited to see happening in my students, is multidimensional awareness, but not just when you're doing your spiritual work or you're alone or whatever, when you're walking through your day.
Yeah.
So sometimes the one client said, oh, I kind of walk through my house and I'm in this dreamy state and I can perceive this part of, but I couldn't drive a car, right? And that's kind of but then there's this other part of you that if you go somewhere you've been before. I went back to visit my family and I went to university there. I had relatives there when I was a kid. My parents went back to retire there. My children moved there. I met my first husband there. Lots of shit going on there, right? So when I went there this time, it was from a higher perspective. And I was fully aware of all the different me's that had existed in that space, on that road, down that street, over there. And it was being able to understand those parts of me, but not be triggered by them, not be emotional with them anymore, but just to be, oh, look, there's those different parts of me. Or when you're in a breakdown, or you're in a tragedy, or someone's dying that you love, whatever it is you perceive as bad or difficult, you still walk through it. You were describing it, I forget how you put it, but to me, it's like you're walking through the 3D. You came to 3D, okay? So this is happening, okay, wherever you are. But how you walk through it, what level of consciousness you're mostly at. This part of you is having to go through the grief, the birth, the death, the whatever's happening. And then there's these other parts of you. Maybe there's the little girl that's coming back to say whatever. Then there's this part of you that you've developed that you're reclaiming, right? That all these things we're talking about, the purpose of is, do you have to understand it? No, you have to just realize that you are attached to these parts of you that are not supporting you, and they're doing it from protection, safety, love, but that doesn't serve you anymore because you are ready to come back. So then it's safer to be in your body.
Absolutely. And again, probably because of the fact that I'm in the UK, I've been shown it that it's allowing all aspects to you to have a seat at the table, and the table is round. It's a round table and all aspects have a seat. There's no hierarchy. There's one of the things about reclaiming your power is realizing and fully accepting that there is no hierarchy. And that includes within the aspects of yourself. So we call the ego the lower self, but I'm not using that term in any way judgmentally or any way hierarchically. It is the aspect of our lowest frequency bandwidth that represents is attached to our personality identification, which is the lowest frequency within this incarnated body. And then the highest aspect is the highest frequency bandwidth that we are holding within our multidimensional spectrum of light, sound, and vibration. But there's no one voice is greater than the other. One truth is better than the other. They all have a seat at the table. Therefore, there's no one lurking or hiding in the shadows who's got power over you because you daren't bring them to the table to give them a voice in the first place. That's one aspect of the healing journey, is to fully go and locate all aspects of you and say, hey, hiya, how you doing? What, to speak to me. I want to hear you. I want to see you fully. So all aspects of the table have an equal voice. Now, they're not all going to agree. You know, if your highest aspect of self is saying, take this leap of faith, like mine did, leave your successful job that you've worked all your life and trained all your life to do, and you know, you're earning a great salary, it's job security, you've got responsibility and status and yada yada yada, and your higher self is saying, but it's completely out of alignment with who you are as a channel, and that's not walking your truth, so dump it and go do this. My lowest aspect of self was like, hang on a minute.
What? Yeah. But I worked hard to achieve all the things I was told I should achieve. I have reached the success in the, cultural mindset of where I, grew. What? Yeah. Then the new door
But rather
opens.
than going, okay, higher self, I'm going to listen to you because you're the voice of truth, and I'm going to ignore you, silly little voice. It's okay. No, you all get to have your say. You all get to have your say. I get to look at you individually, and I get to acknowledge whatever any of your opinions are. I'm not influenced by any of you. I get to make that choice consciously by hearing everyone and tuning in and feeling into what feels in alignment. And sometimes it's going to be, do you know what, I'm going to go with the ego on this one because that's a step too far. And sometimes it's going to be, it's as scary as hell, but I'm going to go with the higher self on this one. And, I've heard you and I've seen you. Therefore, all of these other aspects feel validated.
Yes.
And they're not going to be trying to trip you up. They're not going to be trying to drag you back.
Throwing themselves in front of the bus. Yeah, right. Giving you laryngitis and, the drama. Yeah, when you're not working together.
Exactly. They're not going, they may chunter. They may be like,
chunter. I don't know that word, chunter. I love that.
Yeah.
Grumble.
Yeah, grumble. And they may sulk. And that's absolutely fine. It's like, don't be afraid of what is coming and flowing through you.
Yeah.
Because even when you make a decision, you make a choice and it feels really aligned, you're immediately going to have all merry hell play out within your field. It's like, let it flow. Fear, hello, fear. Nice to meet you. Let's experience you for a little bit.
Exactly. Yeah.
Whatever it is, just let it come up, let it express itself, and let it go.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly how it works too. Energetically, there is nothing better than acceptance. It makes no sense whatsoever to the logical mind. But I learned this from my hypnosis mentor, and I didn't call it acceptance until I started using the scale of consciousness. And acceptance is a few states into power states, right? You leave fear, grief, shame, all these heavy states that it feels like you have to force yourself through, and you hit courage and neutrality and willingness. But acceptance is where your emotional body forgives. So you don't have to work on forgiveness. It just dumps the shit. Your mind starts to find harmony. It's like, oh, there's a solution. You transcend, you just rise out of it. You don't have to know the story. You don't have to know who did why and solve this problem and be overwhelmed by all the shit going on in your life. And then you're surrounded with compassion. That all happens at the state of acceptance. But I avoided acceptance because I thought it was giving in. I thought it was giving up. I thought it was accepting something I didn't want. I thought it was condoning what someone else did. Right. So I had this, inner battle towards, I'm not accepting this. This is not okay. Instead, I was like, I used to have panic attacks. They started in Egypt when we blew the power out after 5 hours in the king's chamber and all this stuff. And then I went through a healing, but they would be triggered in different situations, like on planes. And so I got up the last day before the seminar was ending, one of my hypnosis seminars. The mentor said, anybody have anything? And I said, well, I woke up this morning knowing I'm getting on a plane, and I started to have a mini panic attack, and I stopped it, but just the thought triggering. So he told me, get in line for the plane and plan a big, juicy, hairy panic attack. Like, start to imagine, you throw your book, you knock the stewardess out, you fall on the floor, you puke on someone, like, just go crazy. And of course I started laughing. And what he was teaching me was shifting states of consciousness from down here, fear, what if it happens? What if it happens? What if it happens? It's all I'm thinking. It's all I'm seeing. It's all I'm tuning into, right? And then I'm sucking all these places in me that had fear of being embarrassed or whatever. And they're all gathering together to create that. And I started to laugh. And every time since then. And what happened is, instead of holding on to the energy, you accept the fear. And pretty soon it goes through you. And then you can be like, oh yeah, that is pretty funny.
And sometimes, I mean, it's great to be able to do that, but sometimes, because your universal self knows exactly what you need, you will live it. So for me, when I had my panic attacks, it was like the worst case scenario. We were at my mum and dad's, and it was winter, and it started to snow, and I was like really getting stressed and really panicking, because I was thinking, we're going to get stuck in the snow, we're going to get stuck in the snow. And so we left. We had my son in the back of the car. We were driving down the motorway, driving home in a blizzard, and the tire blew out in the fast lane. So we ended up on the hard shoulder in a blizzard. This was all my worst case scenarios.
Yes.
I went into a humongous panic attack to the point where I was literally frozen. I couldn't move. And all I remember doing was asking my hands to open and close. And I was sending the signal down, but nothing was physically happening until, and it felt like a lifetime, but it wasn't. My hands just really slowly started to open and close. And then once I realized, oh, hey, my hands are opening and closing, then I was like, oh, how are you, to my son? Are you okay? And then I went out and I helped with the tire. And so, you know, if you can do it through that changing, shifting your consciousness through imagining, which is great because your brain doesn't actually know the difference, but sometimes realize that your universal self will bring it as an experience.
Oh, yeah.
But just let it flow through you. Just be in that moment, be fully present with it and go, okay, we're doing this now. Fine. Okay.
Yeah.
I can't tell you the amount of times where I thought I was going to die, quite literally, physically going to die, because I had palpitations, this, that, and the other. Always used to happen in the middle of the night, where I'd feel completely and utterly alone. And I just embraced death. I was like, okay, well, if I'm going to die, let's do it. Let's die. Let's get it over with, because I'm bored. Otherwise, let's just go back to sleep.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I would just let it completely flow through me. But it is shifting that perspective of it. It's not kind of tunnel vision thinking, this is it, this is the all that is. It's like, no, this is something that's happening. This is and I'm looking on it and I'm witnessing myself experiencing it. Who is that witness? Oh, it's another aspect of me.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, and that's the power of the masters, you know, when they learned alchemy, so to speak, when they learned the universal laws, they understood these kinds of things, then they would go to that higher perspective and watch, even though, yes, the body's going through the panic attack or potential panic attack or whatever it is. And yeah, I mean, I don't know about you, but me and a lot of my students have been going through patterns that were old with the eclipse that happened a week ago. And we have a good 4 weeks of really feeling the eclipse turning our direction, new identity, new direction, all this stuff happening. And old patterns about 2 weeks before the eclipse, something my partner hasn't felt in 3 years since his seizure, started having those things come back. We literally were like, what, are you getting worse now? And I started having all these symptoms I had 3 years ago that were, I couldn't swallow, I couldn't eat, and just like very serious. And so I would lay at night and be in my healer body, and I'm doing okay. I'm doing my rife and my vibrational work, and I'm doing this, and I'm watching it. And then I'm literally having nightmares that my parts of my vertebrae are coming out of my mouth, because it felt like things were in pieces. And I'm like, okay, they're going to have to cut me open, and there's going to be cancer. This part of me is over here doing this. But I was so separated from that the other part was like, have those fears. However, this is an old pattern. This is like an echo. And then to walk through it took 3 weeks but I can swallow now, and I didn't go to a doctor. And I'm not telling people don't go to a doctor, but if you're feeling some of this stuff repeat, it's completing.
Absolutely. And again, yeah, I've gone through the same things with certain physical symptoms. I mean, cancer for me was a big one. Most of my family has died of cancer or has had cancer in some way, shape, or form. And I know from a medical perspective, it's not linked, but energetically it is. It's a pattern energetically, and it's
Mentally.
yeah,
when people accept, well, my mom has breast cancer and my grandma had breast cancer, so I'm going to get breast cancer, so I'm going to go chop my boobs off before I need to. This is not true. You can change your DNA, but yes, if you subscribe to that and you believe that, then you've created that particular timeline experience. Yeah.
absolutely. And I remember one of the first really major healing experiences where when I allowed myself to fully step into the work, and my dad, he ended up dying of cancer, but he had skin cancer at one point, and I was so desperate. This was one of my life lessons. I was so desperate to heal him that I took his cancer off him and I put it on me. So I gave myself his skin cancer. And that for me was, okay, I've overstepped the boundary. Just because something is possible doesn't make it right. And also not
Only
being,
if you're a cat. Cats can take it on and send it out, then they don't have to get it. But the rest of us,
not so much. But also being attached to somebody else's journey so badly that you'll literally go beyond that which is appropriate to try and fix someone else. And that was another big one for me, being that rescuer. But yeah, so that came up. The physical symptoms of something that would have been associated with a form of cancer came up for me again, and it was just like I tuned in, I connected in. It was like, no, it's not. Okay. So rather than going down the, oh man, I've got to go to the doctor, and I'm not saying don't go to the doctor for anybody
exactly.
else. You go to the doctor if
Yeah.
you
Do
find
what
something to worry
you
about.
need to do. Yeah.
But for me, I've been down that road in varying degrees, and because I am a channel and because I have a very good connection to my truth, and my journey has been one of trust and faith. So that's where my journey has really enabled me to be the clear and perfect channel. It was like, okay, fine. And then I come out and I'm still working through the physical aspect of it, but I haven't got the emotional and the mental attachment as it would have played out. And so it's like, okay, this is interesting. Why is this coming up for me now? Why is this looking like this? And then when you ask a question, you get the answers. You may not hear the answers or see the answers, but you do get them. So when you ask a question, then again, take a step back, give space to receive. And yeah, I was receiving, this is the completion. These eclipses were all about, what are we wanting to bring in? Letting go of all the baggage we're dragging behind us, completing all of these cycles so that we can actually step into these new codes. They're all around us anyway. We're just, are we allowing them to activate fully within us? And when we allow them to activate within us, we radiate them out to everybody else. And we're a walking permission slip. We're a walking new code radiation device.
Yeah, exactly. And once it's put into the Akasha, anybody can pick it up. Anybody can run the 1 minute mile as soon as one person ran the 1 minute mile. So the second you do that, people, especially who are tuned in, who are seeking, who've already been putting that vibration out there, boom, 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 boom. Yeah. So it's so fun, all this stuff. I wish we could keep talking for like 10 more hours. So, well, LouMatson.com, and tell us, is there anything else you want to share as we close this fantastic conversation? Thank you so much. I know that what happens when we share this kind of information is you get to hear truth. That means truth in a perspective of not somebody else's experience of the way it should be, but how we see it for many different people unfolding, so that you can then pull, the information that's coming to you through what we're sharing here. And it's all about freedom.
Absolutely. So the freedom codes were being activated 2019, kind of 20. I mean, we the whole COVID experience was a big expression collectively of the freedom codes activating. So if you were fully ready to step into those freedom codes, then there was major shifts and transformations that occurred in people's lives. They may have looked challenging, they may have looked exciting, depended on your perspective. What I've been getting is the codes of joy are coming through. So they're ready, they're stacking up. So if you're open to joy, and again, we have no idea what joy actually looks and feels like from a human perspective, because we haven't had that frequency unadulterated on this timeline for a long time. So I know when I first experienced bliss, I thought I'd been drugged and I just wanted it to stop. So
Ah, oh my God, yes. Ah.
so when we experience something that is really on high vibe, it can actually feel really truly scary. So things are ramping up. 2023, I'm really excited for, but then I was really excited moving into 2020. So I'm not going to say what it's going to look like because I don't know. And it's going to look different for everybody anyway, because it's all about your perspective. But the more work you do around allowing all aspects of yourself a seat at the table and giving them a voice, seeing them, really seeing them and hearing them, then you get to step into that multidimensional space that you are, and step away from this completely fixed view of only viewing it from all of these things that have been influencing and pulling you and your personality identification construct. And clear your field, cleanse yourself in whatever way that gets to look for you. Visualization, actual physical showering, getting in the sea, whatever, Epsom salts, doesn't matter. Cleanse your field, clear the clutter out, let go of everything that's no longer serving internally. Do a whole big kind of clutter shop. I was taught the traffic light system, which I love, which is give a red light to absolutely anything in your life, be it a physical thing in your house or a thought form or an emotion. Is it serving me? Is it nourishing me? If it's a no, it's a red light. If it's a yes, it's a green light. If it's neutral, it's neither serving me nor taking my energy away. It's amber. Get rid of everything that's red. Just start there and start bringing in more that's green. Nourish yourself. Start asking yourself, what does joy look like for me in this moment? What does love look like for me in this moment? And allow yourself at least one element of that in a day. And it can just be taking 5 minutes and locking yourself in a cupboard, getting away from your work colleagues or something, or walking on the beach or taking the puppies for a walk or whatever. It doesn't matter. It can be big, it can be small. That's irrelevant. Know where you start and stop. Start allowing yourself to say no. The more you do it, the more practice you get at it, and the easier it becomes. And the easier it is to find where your boundary is on the big things. So play with the little things. We don't all have to jump off a cliff on this journey.
Yes, yeah.
You can step off the sidewalk.
A small cliff. Yeah, step.
And just
oh my gosh, I kid you not. One of my clients, she's been through so much stuff. Oh my goodness. And her mother died and so on 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 and so on. And then she had this break and she was like, okay, we're going to get back together now. And then she got COVID, it was just like this. And then she texted me, we had a session yesterday, but she texted me a week ago on the eclipse and said, I stepped off just a step and broke both ankles. Like how? Wow. And she's got 6, no, 8, maybe 3 months of non-mobility, both ankles, from doing something that didn't even, wasn't like, wow, so it's like, wow, talk about listening, talk about being redirected, and right exactly on the friggin' eclipse, U-turn. So amazing. Just
what
amazing.
a gift. I mean, take that time, take that time, that opportunity, because again, it's like, that's interesting. But
Wow.
and the last thing is come back into your heart. Drop out of your head, drop out of here, and come into your heart field and really feel how enormous you truly are. You know, if that's not one way to allow yourself to embody all of that you are in this incarnated field, never mind the bits beyond, just coming into your heart field and really letting yourself expand into that space. You're still in the physical body, and yet you're connected to that really eternal aspect of yourself.
Beautiful. Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much. I love you. You're so wonderful. Thank you for everything you're doing. I really, really, really appreciate it. Such an honor to know you, to know what you're doing, and to have you come share. Thank you.
It's an absolute pleasure. Thank you for letting me come on again.
Yay. Oh, I'm so happy. All right, good. Well, thank you everybody who was watching over on YouTube. And let me just share again real quick so you know where to find Louise. We will make sure that that's also in the description down below. If you want to see other infinite conversations that I have had, there's a playlist for that. And there's also a playlist for the spiritual weather reports and for the multidimensional meditations and for the weekly oracle cards. So we're doing all those good things. And here, loumatson.com or mundane2magicalliving.com. So wonderful. I will see you all soon. Have a beautiful and blessed day. And you know what's wonderful about this is to experience this conversation and then maybe take notes, but then to either go back or to look at your notes and step into some of these things that Louise shared. Write down the things that she mentioned at the end. These things that are very simple concepts that you can start to apply when you're going through your day-to-day things. It's really the cumulative effect, I think, that happens when you remember to get out of your head and in your heart if you're feeling triggered, or if you're not wanting to have a certain kind of conversation and you're bringing a lot of tension and you're feeling panic come. Remember, there's all these parts of you. They're not just the parts that make you feel panic. They're the parts that also know how to eloquently express yourself. There are also the parts that know how to stand strong in the face of adversity. So all of that multidimensional being that's waking up is you. And thank you for being here. And thank you for doing this work for yourself and being a part of it. Like we said, everyone is affecting all of us. So I'm sending you all a big hug. Namaste. Okay, let's see what we got here.